Hello everyone, welcome to yet another Twitch stream, this time about a completely different topic than usually, and I'm sorry for a bit of a delay at the start. I've had some technical difficulties between OBS and other things. Apparently there are issues when you're trying to record a stream and change network settings at the same time. So sorry for that, and please welcome my guest, Matthew. I'm gonna try to enable your audio, and I hope this is gonna work. Hey, can you introduce yourself?
Okay. Yeah. Hi, I'm Matt Groves. Let's see if it sounds working. Yeah, it looks like it's coming through on Twitch just okay. So
Awesome.
yeah, but it was quite a ordeal getting things to work today, but we got through it. A little bit late start, but we're here. I'm Matt Groves. I'm happy to be on the stream. Happy to help with anything you're working on with your project here. I work for Couchbase as a developer advocate, and we might get into some Couchbase today. I'm also Microsoft MVP and a bunch of other stuff. And I've written a book for Manning. I'm a Pluralsight author, et cetera, et cetera. But I also have my own Twitch stream, which I do on a regular basis. That's at Matthew D. Groves on Twitch. So, but right now we're here talking to Andrabus. Is that how you say it on your Twitch channel?
Yeah. That's actually a combination of my first name and a bus. Like, what do you imagine when I say bus?
When I think of bus, two things, right? I think of like a school bus, and I also think of like a message bus or a computer, like a bus in a computer system.
Exactly, yeah, because that's because I have as a hobby, I do drive buses around the town, like for real. That's not irony.
As a hobby, huh?
Yeah, and when I was actually, I was joining GitHub, I think 3 years ago or something like that. And I was trying to figure out a unique username, and you know how it is. It's worse than com domains. Yeah, so I had to figure out something that was unique enough. And this was the first thing that came to mind, which was actually available. Then the com domain was available, so I tried using that on all channels. And yeah, now my biggest fear is that people will actually think it's a message bus, or because we're all developers. So
I didn't realize bus driving could be a hobby.
Yeah, you can actually do that. The problem nowadays is that there are so few people that are actually willing to do it, and the employment ratio is really low currently in here in Czech Republic. That they're happy for anyone who's willing to do it. I do it once a week.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm imagining it's probably a little different right now as well, and not a lot of people on the bus as normal, right? I don't know how things are in Czech, but
so right now, yeah, in Czech Republic, because of the pandemic, the transportation is limited, so that all the drivers that actually drive outside the country are currently free. So right now there is no problem with getting bus drivers. How is it in the US?
In terms of transportation?
No, I mean in terms of the pandemic, is everything okay, or can you leave your house, or what's the current status?
Well, so in the United States, it's kind of the states part there is kind of a big deal over here, and so each of the states are affected differently. Each of the cities really are affected differently, and so the decisions are kind of at the state level right now. So, for instance, it's pretty bad in New York City, in New York, and then other hotspots like Washington and the Bay Area, things like that. Where I am is Ohio. And our governor was actually very, very cautious and started to shut some things down early once we started getting cases reported in this state. So the schools have been shut down for a while, and restaurants are shut down basically, and no problem. Are you seeing any error messages or anything? No, I guess we're back.
Oh yeah. No, we're back,
anyway,
yeah.
but yeah, I can leave my house. Certainly go to a grocery store, but the kind of stay at home as much as possible right now. That's the state of things.
I think that's what everyone's doing.
We've been on stay at home for seems like 2 months now. I don't know if it's quite that long, but it seems like a long time.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's doing right now, and I actually saw like a nice meme like a week ago where there were the three things, like you can't leave home, you have to stay behind your computer all the time, and you can't pretty much do anything else. And they said that it was the dream of developers. And I think, are you here, Matthew? Oh, hey, Doug the Coder, can you actually hear me? Because I think that I'm having technical difficulties with this, with internet connection as well. Or is that just Matthew? Okay,
Still
we're
here.
back.
It looks like maybe a Twitch issue.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing an error on Twitch as well. So
Okay. Yeah.
nope, looks like we're back on Twitch. So it looks like it's maybe a spotty issue with
Well,
networking or something.
actually, yesterday I bought a 15-meter UTP cable to make sure that I'm really online all the time, because otherwise my router is at the opposite side of the flat. So
I see.
I should be good, but we'll see. You never know, with internet connection these times.
Yeah.
All right, Matt. So what I want to talk to you about today, and what I actually want to accomplish today is, do you know about the Twilio hackathon that they announced at the start of April?
I don't think I am familiar with it specifically. I'm certainly aware of Twilio, and I know what a hackathon
Right.
is. So I think it's pretty
Yeah, so
self-explanatory.
that's all the pieces. Yeah, you're right. So they did a hackathon for the whole April, and I thought that it would be a nice opportunity for me to do something outside of my daily line of work, and create a project. But here we go. We have 22nd of April, and I'm just starting. Yeah, so we'll see how far I can get it. But the idea for the project is what you can actually see on my screen is the CarMessenger. It's pretty much Messenger for drivers of cars that don't actually have their phone numbers, but we do have license plates. Yeah, every single car has a license plate. So the idea is that you're able to go here, write the license plate down in this field, and submit a message to the driver of that car. Because do you drive? I mean, you're from Ohio, you're from US, of course you drive. I assume you have like Ford F-150 or something like that, like those big American cars.
I have a Ford Explorer actually. But,
there you go. Yeah, I have a much smaller car than that, but yeah. So you know that sometimes when sometimes you want to get angry with other people. At least that's what I do when I'm driving alone. But sometimes you just want to let them know that their light bulb is broken or something. Yeah. So this would be the platform for that, hopefully. So it has the whole project, as far as I'm looking at it, has a few parts, right? So the front end part I want to do in Next.js. The reason for that is that I have never done anything with Next.js, so I thought that would be a nice opportunity to learn more about it. And the backend, I thought about using serverless functions, but when you want to use serverless functions and you have a bit of more advanced functionality that you need to cover, that at least for me, that becomes a nightmare to maintain. So I decided the best choice would probably be to go with .NET Core Web API. Not sure if you still call it Web API, but that's the last time I did something like this. It used to be Web API. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. It's basically with .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, it's kind of all the same now. Like it used to be different namespaces, but it's all
Right.
like the same controller classes now. So I think if you use that name, people know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool. So that's what I want to use for backend, and the backend will actually have multiple parts. First of them will be the website, obviously, or the website's backend, so that I can send requests from Next.js to the backend and back. Because obviously the Web API will be a middleman between the website and the database. And that will also need to cover the Twilio's requests. Because the part where it actually fits within the Twilio's hackathon is that you can also send the messages via your phone. If you have WhatsApp, I think everyone nowadays have WhatsApp on their phones. So you can send a message from WhatsApp to Twilio's number with the message identification, and that would actually send a request to this Web API, which would then, I assume that these two projects would be using one shared project that would communicate with database. At least that's what I was thinking, like a database business layer or something like that. And that would go into database. So does that make sense so far?
So I'm just trying to get this clear in my mind here. So you're setting up a backend for Twilio itself to make requests to.
No, not really. So the Twilio integration, that's something that I want to do in the future, probably during the weekend, because that's probably not going to be a 2-hour thing.
Okay.
What I'm trying to do now is to create a backend.
Right.
Mainly this layer, the database business layer, that would get the data and store it in database or get some data from database, right?
Okay. Right.
And these would be, actually these two layers would be on top of that. So the first layer would be servicing the website. The other one would be servicing Twilio.
Okay.
That makes sense, yeah?
Got it. Yes.
Perfect. And we have some guests here. Hey, there we have Ryan. Hey, Ryan. What's up today? And we have Doug the Coder. Hello. This software has the potential to start a civil war. Yeah, I'm aware of that. And we'll see. That would be fun, actually. Maybe we'll need to include some kind of moderating into those messages. But all right. So how do I start with that? It's been a while since I've created a web API project. So I assume the Visual Studio 2019 is okay.
Yeah, that's what I use very often. So that's something I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna use that then. See, the last time I used it was for Blazor project.
Okay.
That was fun. That was not that long ago. Month and a half ago.
Oh, I forgot that it's European date format. I was thinking that was in the future.
No, not really. Actually, I can show that quickly. It's a 2-minute thing. It's called don'tparkhere.com, and it's related to the residential parking zones in Brno. Oh, what's going on? Oh, this is Blazor stuff.
I'm sensing a theme with your with the apps that you're working on.
Yeah,
They're all
yeah.
related to driving and roads and parking.
Yeah. I'm also printing a 3D model of a bus. So it's kind of a disease when I hear you talking about it. But you see, what this can do is when you click on a spot on a map, it will actually tell you, or it should tell you, it's checking the location, it tells you in which zone you're parked and where is the nearest parking machine. Yeah, so in case you want to stay there, you should register your car in there. It also tells you that there are some zones where you cannot park. See, no access is allowed for visitors. So it nicely tells you. It also takes into account the day and weekends and things like that. So this is one of the Blazor projects I worked on in the past. And it's deployed and I haven't touched it for over a month. That's always the same story with my projects. All right, so let's take a look what we can do here. So I'm going to create a new project.
Okay.
And what do I choose here? So that's going to be .NET Core. Do I use the web application or?
Yeah, I would just type in ASP.NET in there, and you'll get an ASP.NET Core web application.
Okay.
And C# probably is what you want to use there. So that's where I would start.
All right. So let's call this CarMessenger. Now this is the name for the whole solution, right?
The first one is the name for the project. The bottom one is the name for the whole solution. Yeah.
So
and by default they'll be the same, but you can change them.
Okay. So is there any kind of naming convention that I should be using for the database layer?
Right. So I mean, I guess this depends on how you want to go about it, but I mean, normally, if it's like a data access layer, you might want to say project name would be CarMessenger dot, and you could say data or data access or something like that.
I like data access.
Yeah.
But the solution name would be CarMessenger.
Right. Yep. That sounds good.
Now this is stupid location. I'm gonna use my own one.
I do the same kind of thing.
But I think that I have other thing in that folder, so I'm just gonna call this web API to make sure we're in a separate directory. So I'm gonna create that. So I'm looking for ASP.NET Core 3.1, right?
Okay. Yeah, 3.1 is fine. And then API is probably the one you're looking for there.
Okay.
It's the second template. Now, and there's other ones like web application and MVC. Since you're using a front end of Next.js, which I assume is some sort of SPA framework, I'm not familiar with Next.js.
Yeah.
You probably don't necessarily need to have those. So API is good enough for now. But if you want to add those features in the future, you can do that. It's just this template will give you a minimum set of features for an API, whereas a web application will give you like some Razor templates and things like that.
Right. Well, essentially what I'm looking for is just a backend that provides a REST service. Or
This will do the trick.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Configure for HTTPS. I probably want to keep that.
Sure.
Okay, then let's create. What do we have here? Is the idea that drivers would register using their license plate and add other contact details. That's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is that you don't have to register. Your license plate is registration enough. So if you want to just take a look at the messages someone sends you about your car, you can just go in, type in the license plate, and show messages. So this is all public. It's all open. That's one of the lessons I learned, working on open source. If you can open source it, just open source it. So if you don't need any authentication, just don't put any authentication in there. That's what I want to do with this project. What I'm actually thinking about is when you go to the profile, I also have a template for profile here. When you go into the profile, there should be something like a subscribe button that if this is your car, you would get a notification via email if someone sends you a message. So, and of course, also your neighbor can subscribe to your car. Anyone who wants to see your messages.
It's a true public forum.
Yeah.
It's an anonymous social network almost.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's see if this is going to be the next Facebook or so. Right. So that's for UDAC, and let's go back to this project. So, how do I structure the project? Now I know that there will be some kind of models. I will definitely have one model for the license, for not license plate, but for a car. I will have one model. Well, let me actually check here. I tried to do that. For one model for messages. And these will be shared throughout the whole application. So should I use one model and use it on all the projects, or should I use some kind of a mapping between the REST service and the different layers for website, for Twilio and others?
Right. This is always a tough question to answer. To start out with, of course, it's easier to use the same model everywhere, right? And so for a hackathon type of situation, that's where I would go with. I would just simplest thing possible. Of course, in the long run, you might want to have different views of your data. In this particular application, everything's public, so I can't picture a situation where you'd want to map certain fields for certain users and certain fields for other users. So everything is public. So I don't see a downside to that yet. But in the future, of course, it's a good pattern. It's not always useful, but it's a good pattern to have like view models that you expose different views of your data, and you have data models that represent how it's stored in your database, and then you can map between them with a tool like AutoMapper, or you can just do it manually, map between them as well.
Okay.
But for now, I'd say just go with a single model, and we can change that later.
So I would just put the models.
Too complicated.
Yeah, right. So I'll just put the models in the same project for now. Yeah.
That's probably fine. Yeah.
Okay. So let's put there one class. Let's call that a message. And the message, that's the tricky thing. Yeah. Let me just put this here. Okay, I don't know how to organize the windows here, but every message definitely will have a license plate, and every license plate needs to have a language code, because for every country there are different license plates. Then there's going to be the message itself. And that's all I can think of right now. Maybe identifier of who actually sends the message. that's another thing.
So if I'm reporting a message, I would just put my name on there or my own license plate, or okay.
That's something that I have yet to figure out. Because if you're sending that via WhatsApp, via your phone, I just thought that I would store your phone number and generate some kind of a random key, and your messages would be published under that random key, because by default I don't want people to know who sent that message, because then you're playing with fire. That's the GDPR stuff that Ryan already asked about.
Right.
So I thought that would be just some kind of identifier. The same goes for the website. Maybe there it could be something like Auth0 authentication, but your username would not be visible anywhere, but it would be just stored. This was your message. Yeah, so somehow.
I see.
So we have some kind of identification, but I don't like the word identifier here. Let's say that sender identification or sender ID. It's a string, so.
Okay.
And I can't have string message, so message content, or just content, because we're in a message model. Now, my question here for you, when I connect this to a database, I don't know the specifics of NoSQL database. I've never worked with any. Is it better to have everything in one model as strings, or should I structure it? Because normally in C# I would say not string license plate or string language code, but I would just put here public license plate blah blah blah, and these two things would be a part of that license plate. So is it better to have the hierarchy in place, or is it better to have it just flat like this?
So I think either one will work. One of the benefits of NoSQL, though, is you can sort of nest those together into their own object, right? So if you wanted to maybe restructure this in the future, if you wanted to say, okay, language plate and language code, or license plate and language code, and you want to add something like, I don't know, expiration date or something like that, then you could just add that to that model, and you wouldn't have to go and add that as a base member of the message. So I think either way is going to work, and that's with NoSQL it'll comment it either way, right?
Okay.
So with relational it's a little trickier, right? Because you have to have a separate table and a foreign key and stuff like that. So with NoSQL you can just structure that into one sort of aggregate root document.
Okay. So what would you do personally?
Let me think about this. So language code. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is language code. The idea with language code is license plates from other countries.
Should be country code, yeah.
Okay. So is there a set list of country codes that you want to support?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so, because on the not on the profile, but here there is a flag, which should open a menu, but JavaScript isn't there yet. But yeah, there. Let me just do this manually. Display. No. Block. So this is essentially how this should work.
Okay.
So there will be probably a list of countries that I want to support. Yeah.
Okay. So in the case of country codes, I mean, they don't change very much, right? So similar to like the states here in the United States, like some people have a lookup table for the states, which, okay, I guess, but how often do we add new states?
Yeah.
It's not very often. So my only thought here is if you wanted to make a country code a reference to some sort of lookup, some sort of other document that has a lookup of all those country codes. But I don't think that's super necessary here, as long as country codes aren't changing very often.
No, I would just keep this
risk for you. So.
Yeah, I would just keep this fixed.
Yeah. So I don't know. Right now, I'm not seeing a benefit of either one that's standing out to me. Like they seem, I don't see a huge benefit of making a nested object. But if you want to try it just to experiment, that's totally fine too.
I want to keep it as simple as possible, so I'll just keep it as it is. Yeah. But good point about language, because it should have been country code.
Okay.
All right. So now there are 2 cases that I need to implement. So first of them is to store the message, and the second one is get messages by the license plate. So I tried to actually make this as a parameters. When I store the message, I need to provide the phone number and license plate, language, not language, but country code, and the message itself. And for get messages, I need to provide the license plate and country code. Okay. So I assume I'll start doing that in the controller.
Sorry, could I see that? Could I see that one more time?
Sure.
Text file there. Okay, so you're storing a phone number as well. So that's not in this model here.
No, that should be the sender ID in this case.
Sender ID would be phone. Okay, got it.
So that will not be phone number. It will be sender ID, and the phone number would actually be here. Twilio to REST. That would require phone number and all the other things.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are the 2 layers for those services, and this should be the one that I'm implementing right now that stores the data in the database.
Okay. Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. So at this point, I'll just create a controller, right? Or I just adjust the one that I have here.
Yep.
Let's call that message controller. And remove this stuff.
Yeah, and for people watching, this is just sort of the default controller template that the API project creates, like a fake weather forecast API for you. So just as an example.
Should I keep the logger in there?
I mean, I don't know if you want to be logging, doing any logging. Probably you need to hook up some sort of logging framework in your in your
probably
well.
not right now.
Yeah, might be something you want to add later.
Yeah. Okay, so this is gonna be then empty controller, empty constructor. Oh, not
for now. Yeah.
Message controller, and I assume that. So when I add when I add these services, I assume those will be different projects here. So they will get and they will call actually this data access layer. So
it's going to be a separate. It's going to make REST calls itself to.
Yeah, I'm thinking about
another
that
project.
But probably not. Then this project would probably become just a dependency, right, of these 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So this may not even need to be an ASP.NET Core project, right? This may be your web backend, and maybe you want a separate project called Data Access. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
Maybe you just want to keep them the same for now. I don't know. But you may want to think about renaming this project.
Yeah, I'll just keep this here as of now. I'll just divide it later. Yeah, when I do one of these, I'll just extract it from here then. But okay, so we will have two things here. First one would be get, not weather forecast, but that would be a message or list of messages actually.
Well, you've got IEnumerable of list of messages there, so you've got
you're right.
two layers. But
yeah,
IEnumerable or list is fine.
Yeah,
either one.
And here we go. Oh, come on. Okay, this will go away. And another one that would be HTTP post, let's say. And that will return, what should it return when I store the message? Is Boolean okay?
So Boolean indicating what, success or failure?
Yeah.
I think probably the HTTP code would be best for that.
Okay.
Return a 200 or 500 or 400 or whatever. So, I mean, with a post, you may want to just maybe you want to echo back the object that was posted, or you may want to return an ID. We may not use an ID in this case, but like a database key, you may want to return that as a string.
Yeah.
Or maybe just nothing. Just return a HTTP success code and that's it.
Yeah, in this case, I think that's okay. Just return the status code. So would I put here like a HTTP status code or something?
No, I don't think he.
Or just make it void?
I don't know. I don't know what a void would be on that. Yeah, we can try void.
Let's try void. Yeah. I like that. If there is nothing to respond, then void is fine.
Yeah.
And that would be store. So yeah, let's call that store. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, so now for store I need these things, and for get I need these things. So do I just add these things as attributes here?
Yes. So if you want to make them just in the query string, you can just go, just put parameters there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in here.
So this is where we get into the modeling question you asked earlier, right? So you can make a post model here, or you could just use the message model we already created, right?
So yeah, if I'm honest, I'm more of a fan of creating separate post models.
Okay.
Because that just provides some kind of clarity. But at this point, let's take a look at how that looks like. So we're looking at sender ID, which is there, license plate, which is there, country code, which is there, and message, which is there. So let's use that for now.
One of the things you can also get by having a separate model is you can, this is a pattern I've used in the past, you can add the validation to that class itself, right? And so you don't end up putting a bunch of validation code inside the data model. You put it inside in this case, the edit model or the post model. So
that's true because
to think about.
Yeah, that's true because sometimes you also need the attributes for the database model, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least that's my experience when I used to work with Entity Framework. I'm not sure if that changed. But yeah, good point. Okay, so I have the controller available now. So how do I now connect it to database? Or how can you introduce the NoSQL database?
Sure, yeah. So we're going to try out Couchbase server here today, which is one of the leading NoSQL document databases. And so a document database is, you can just basically think of JSON, storing JSON data. There's a comment from Ryan, by the way. I-action result would make more sense than a void. I think he's right about that.
Okay, thanks for that.
So yeah, yeah.
And
anyway,
should that be here too?
You could make it I-action results
and
of type IEnumerable message.
Let's see.
I think either one would work. No?
He doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think just the IEnumerable will work fine.
Okay. Perfect.
But I-action result makes sense because then we can return OK and things like that. So, but anyway, it's a NoSQL database. You're going to be storing JSON documents, and each JSON document will have its own key. So we'll need to talk about key in a second. But the way it's going to work is we're going to just take that C# object. We're going to use the .NET SDK and pass the object to the SDK, which will then serialize it to JSON and store it, send a message to store it into the Couchbase server database. And then we can also look it up by key. But for the use cases you've outlined, actually, we're going to need a query probably, I think, to query those. And with Couchbase, actually, one of the cool things is we can write SQL. It's a NoSQL database with SQL, so we can write a regular SQL query to get that data. So that's basically the quick overview there. Is we're going to just store these messages as individual documents in Couchbase.
Cool. So where do I start? Like I assume that the database is cloud-based, right? So I don't have to install anything.
Well, so Couchbase server can run a lot of different places. There is a Couchbase cloud offering. Right now, it's just introduced. It's in beta. That's a totally cloud-managed DBaaS, they call it. That's currently in a beta. So you have to enroll into the program, get accepted into the beta, things like that. So it's not a simple matter of just at least not yet. Hopefully
Okay.
later this year, but it's it's not a just sign up and get a key. It's not there yet. So there's some other options we can install locally here on. I assume you're running Windows.
Yeah.
You could do that. We could also run it inside Docker, which is what I do
Okay.
all the time. I run. I don't know if you have Docker installed or not.
I
But
think it should be there. Oh, it isn't?
okay.
I think I did install it at some point. Maybe it's just not showing up. Maybe it was a different. Oh, it was my work laptop probably. I'm on a personal computer now.
So Docker Desktop is what you use for Windows or Mac. But you can also just install it here on Windows if you want to.
Okay.
It's I think it'll take the most time of this installation just to download it, right? But it's a pretty quick install.
Okay.
So couchbase.com/downloads.
Oh, there we go.
And there's two versions of Couchbase Server. So if you expand the Couchbase Server pane there's Enterprise and there's Community. Enterprise is a free download as well. It's totally free. It's an unlimited trial basically to use it as much as you want to. It's all the features of Couchbase. But if you want to go into production with it, you need to buy a license.
Right.
Couchbase Server Community. It's the totally free to run anywhere version of Couchbase Server. No, you don't need to purchase a license for that. And you can see they're both currently have version parity, so they're both 6.5 releases. The community does not have the full set of features the Enterprise has, but for your application, the community is going to be totally fine.
Right.
So we can totally start there.
Okay.
And there's licensing there, so you want to make sure you agree with the licensing stuff, but it is a free license.
Oh, I'll trust you. I agree.
I'm not a lawyer, so just keep that in mind, but
Yeah.
it's a free license.
So it's like with real life, you never know all the laws, but as long as you're a normal person, like not doing anything that, stands out as clearly a bad thing.
Yeah, and it's not like we're not a massive software company with an army of lawyers either. So we're not going to we're not going to come knocking at your door.
That's good to know. That's good to know. I think the viewers will appreciate that information too. Yeah, but with licensing, it's always like you have to trust the companies and.
There's all those stories about the terms and conditions, right? And people like you just did there. You don't really read through it, right? But it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay.
All right, so we're installing it directly here on Windows itself. So Couchbase Server is available for Windows, for Mac, and for a number of different Linux distros. Also runs on Docker, which is what I use, because I switch between versions of Couchbase a lot from day to day. So Docker makes that really easy for me to do that. And then, of course, you can also run Couchbase in Kubernetes. So you can deploy to a Kubernetes cluster. There's an operator for that. And there's also, Couchbase is also in the various marketplaces of Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle, all those sorts of places. So you can also spin it up there. Of course, if you do that right now, it's just going to create VMs for you. It's basically just templates to create VMs. So what we're working on right now is Couchbase Cloud, which is the sort of completely managed by Couchbase, DBaaS, Database as a Service version of Couchbase Server. So we're working through some of that right now. We've opened it up to some customers and some other people to get early feedback on it. And I don't have any dates for you, and certainly some things have been some events going on this year outside of our control that might affect that timeline. But the plan was to have some sort of publicly available version of Couchbase Cloud later this year.
Cool. Then one question: sure. If I want to run this in production for this project, what's the easiest and the cheapest way how I can do that?
Yeah. Well, do you have a plan of where you want to deploy this into production?
Yeah, so I can put it to Azure.
Azure.
It's a company profile, so I'm not paying for it, but I would not like the company to stop that account for me. So
Sure.
what's the cost-effective way of hosting that online?
Yeah, so I am also using Azure, and the idea with Couchbase is that it's a distributed database. So you're meant to run in production. You're meant to run multiple nodes of it and join them all together into a cluster. Now, but again, for a hackathon type of thing, one node of Couchbase is probably fine. So you just need like one VM, and again, assuming you're not going to be this is not going to be hammered with traffic right away, right?
Yeah, probably.
You could probably use one of the more inexpensive VMs on Azure to run this.
Okay.
So I think the minimum recommendation is like 4 gig of RAM, 4-core processor. I think actually I run one in Azure that's like 3.5 gig of RAM with 4 cores. It's one of the cheaper ones. So that's why I'd recommend going with that. And there's templates for that in Azure.
Okay, so how much is that going to cost?
Oh, I mean, I could give you.
Not just a rough number is fine.
Yeah, I want to say I don't know for sure, but I want to say maybe $70 a month, $80 a month, somewhere around there, on Azure with the VM that I chose, right?
Okay.
So it's going to depend a lot based on which VMs are available to you in your data centers, right?
Right. Yeah, just so I have an idea about this. Okay.
Right. And that's just that $70 is Azure cost, right? The Couchbase server is not charging it. Couchbase is not charging anything for this.
Right. So, okay, this was installed. So do I create a new cluster here?
Yes, set a new cluster.
Okay. So cluster name, what should that be?
That can be whatever you want it to be. So
this is the name of the cluster. If you connect multiple clusters, this is the identification of that specific cluster, right?
I don't know if this cluster name is really used anywhere outside of just, to tell you what cluster you're logged into, right? So it's just kind of a helpful label. So you might want to call it the name of your application, for instance, or maybe you can call it, your name on Androbus's cluster or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, create admin username administrator, create password.
Yeah, so this is running locally. So if you're running in production, I'd recommend changing the admin username and using a secure password. But since it's local, just use whatever's easy.
Right.
Again, we have the terms, and I would you can finish by default, so probably be fine. But let's go through the configured disk memory services just to give a quick overview of what's going on here. So. So those first 3 things, I wouldn't worry about those. It's just disk paths, not a big deal. And then these checkboxes here basically are what services do you want to run inside Couchbase and how much RAM do you want to give them, right? So you have to have data, for sure. The minimum is 256, and that's a cache, or that's a RAM quota, right? So that doesn't mean that's the most you can store. It just means it's the most you can store in RAM, right? Same with index is 256. Index and query, we're going to need those for sure. The last one is search. So this is an interesting one because it's kind of like a full text search engine. If you were wanting to search the messages by the contents of their text, right? If you wanted to search for keywords,
right?
Times people mention a certain word and rank them. That's why you'd want to have the search service. If you don't plan to do that, then you can uncheck the search and just leave that out for now.
I don't want to have the full text search because then people get used to it and you have a big problem. Okay, right. So index storage setting.
Yeah, so right now you can only choose standard global secondary. Memory optimizes enterprise only feature, and that it makes indexes faster by using more memory. Basically, is that there? So that's it.
No, please, no update notifications.
I never unchecked that. I don't think I've ever gotten a notification.
Okay, then that's one of the better things then. But I always, whenever I open, I don't know what was it the Visual Studio Code or was that something else? It just kept sending notifications my way, and not all at the start, but you were working with it for 5 minutes and then a notification pops up. Very annoying.
Yeah, I understand.
All right, so what do we do here?
That's it. Your cluster's set up. But the Couchbase is set up and running. So in Couchbase, there's this idea of buckets. And buckets are where you store the documents. So you can kind of
Okay.
think of it like a database catalog if you've used SQL Server before. It's just kind of, you can have multiple buckets in a cluster. But so yeah, go ahead and add a bucket here. And
So
you
is
call it
this project based, or this is like one for messages, one for license plates?
right. Yeah, I think it's better off thinking of this as project based, right?
Okay.
So you could have messages and license plates and authentication information, all those sorts of things in the same bucket.
Okay.
Right? So it's not exactly like a table in a relational database. It's a little broader than.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the memory quota, you have 256 total, so you can actually define how much you want to use for this bucket. The minimum is 100.
Oops. What did I do?
Oh, did you click out of the window?
Nope. I clicked on,
No?
but I don't know. I'll just do it again.
Okay. So
we go.
one of the things about Couchbase is it has a built-in caching layer, so kind of like its own memory cache built in to it. So you don't have to bring in another caching tool. It's just all right there in Couchbase.
Okay.
So everything goes through memory, and that's why you have a memory quota. You can say, I want to use how much of that quota for this bucket, right? So if you want to max it out, that's totally fine. You can change it later. The different bucket types and all these advanced settings and things.
Okay.
Replication's only going to be useful if you have multiple nodes in the cluster.
Right.
You don't have that yet, so you can uncheck that for now. You can always change it later.
Okay.
Yep. And that's it. So now you have a bucket.
Perfect.
And you can start putting data in there. If you click on the documents over there,
Right.
you'll see there's no documents in it. You can add them if you want to. The top right, you see the add document.
Oh, okay.
So on.
Right. No, I don't want to pollute the database, so
Okay.
I'm fine with it being empty. But how do I connect this to the backend, to the .NET Core app?
Okay. All right. So let's go back over to Visual Studio then.
Okay.
And let's go to, so this is an ASP.NET project. So let's go to just add a NuGet package.
Okay.
So there's a couple different options you have here. There's the Couchbase SDK. So you can say, just type in Couchbase and see what comes up there. So the first one, Couchbase Net Client, that's just the raw SDK for Couchbase. Right? And so we're going to use that no matter what. But since we're using Couchbase with ASP.NET, what you should look for is something called, the third one there, Couchbase Extensions Dependency Injection.
This one.
Right, so that is going to give us some ASP.NET integration. So that's going to be what I'd recommend installing.
Cool. So I assume this one installs the net client as well.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes. Right now it installs kind of a older release, like we just released the version 3 of the SDK, but this library does not support version 3 yet, which is fine. We're not going to use anything that's version 3 specific. So.
Okay. Cool. So it's installed now.
Yep.
Perfect.
All right. So then to connect ASP.NET to that, let's go over to startup.cs. Okay, and then in configure services.
Configure services, yeah.
So we're going to add services dot, and then we'll say add Couchbase. So that's one of the extensions that you got from installing that package.
Couchbase. Okay, I think I need a namespace here. Yeah.
Right. Yep. There you go. And then inside that method, you're going to have to give it a configuration. So as a parameter to it.
What's going on? Oh, okay. Yeah, got it.
And so what we can say here is, easiest thing is just say configuration.
Oh, new configuration?
No, just say we're going to use the configuration. What's it called? Member there. So just type in configuration dot. This is how you get settings from your app settings file, for instance, and then say get section. And then you can. We haven't created this yet, but we'll create a section called Couchbase. So just put that as a string, Couchbase.
Okay.
Okay. So what that's going to do is it's going to go look for that configuration section in your app settings file.
Right.
And pass that to Couchbase, and then basically this is where we're going to put the kind of like a connection string, right? So we'll add another section here called Couchbase. And then that will be an object, not a string, but an object. And so we have a few things we need. So we need the credentials. The first one is username.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you remember,
the administrator?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can create other users if you want to, but we're just going to keep it simple.
Okay.
For this. And then the next one is password.
Okay, don't look now.
Oh, whoa. That is a very secure password.
Yeah.
And the last one is a little different here than other databases because it's a distributed database. So you can actually give it a list of all the different nodes in your cluster, and it's going to pick one at random and see if it's available, and get all the rest of the information from that. In our case, we only have the one node, but we want to say here we want to use the word servers. We're going to look for servers with an S. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to be an array. So, because you can have multiple nodes potentially, but we only have the one. So the first one will be just a string, and we'll say it'll just be HTTP:// and then localhost.
Oh, is that with the port?
8091. That's
right.
The port 8091, and it actually uses multiple ports, but 8091 is where we're going to go for discovery. So that's gonna be fine, and that's it.
Cool.
So at that point now, your ASP.NET can use Couchbase. There's one more thing. This is something that I often forget about, and I forget about the syntax for it. But we need to make sure that we close the connection when the app shuts down. This is especially important for production. Right?
Okay.
So what I'm going to look up is the syntax for this, because I can never remember.
Right.
But in the configure method there, we're going to basically we're going to add another parameter to the configure method.
Oh, this one?
Yes. And that is called, if I can remember, I host application lifetime. So no, not the actual arguments coming into the configure method.
This one.
There. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. I host application lifetime.
Yep.
And then just call that whatever you want to, like app lifetime or whatever. Yep, that's fine. And then in the, we'll say the bottom of that configure method, we're going to define, we're going to register an event for that. So lifetime dot application stopped dot register, and then we'll give this a lambda, basically an action.
Oh yeah.
So just left, right, paren, yep, arrow, and then say, well, I guess you need I don't know if you need the brackets here, but we're going to say app dot application services dot get required service.
Yep.
And then the type of that is we're going to need type parameter there. I Couchbase lifetime service.
Right.
And then function, and then dot close.
Cool.
So that means whenever the application shuts down, we're going to go and make sure that we close the Couchbase connection down as well.
I don't think we need those brackets, by the way.
Okay.
I think so. Let's see. Yeah, it seems to be happy.
I thought so. Okay. Good. Cool.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure. All right. And that's it. So that's all the setup you need for right now. Now, of course, you know, you may want to use different credentials and store those credentials in a different place when you go to production, things like that. But this is enough to get started locally.
So where would you use those credentials when you went to production?
So the way I do it, there's lots of ways you can do this, right? Depends on where you deploy it as well. With I deploy the one I deploy to Azure right now, actually for my Twitch chatbot. I deploy to an Azure Web Service, and there are some application settings that you can set either via the command line or the Azure portal, and those will be passed in as like environment variables.
Okay.
And they will override your app settings. So I keep mine there, and that way I can use a GitHub action to deploy and all that kind of stuff. So
right.
it's very simple. If you're deploying to Kubernetes, you can use Kubernetes secrets to store that stuff. You can also use like Azure Key Vault, for instance. That's another way you can go about it. There's lots of different ways you can store credentials, but that's going to be the same no matter if it's Couchbase or SQL Server or whatever, right? You're going to store those credentials somewhere.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Let's start with the app.json settings for now. App settings JSON for now. So now this is connected. So how do I? If I have the data here, how do I store the data in that database as documents?
Yep. Okay, so this is kind of an architectural decision now. So again, at the beginning, we're doing a hackathon. We may want to just do the data access right here in these methods. That's totally fine. You may want to refactor that into a repository or some other sort of pattern in the future, right? But for now, we can do data access right here in the method. So in the constructor, we're going to need to add an argument. And for the Couchbase extension, this is called it's called bucket provider.
Okay.
Okay, and just call that whatever you want to, bucket provider, for instance. And this is an object that will get instantiated just by doing that services.add Couchbase we did earlier, right? So before you do that, let's go into the constructor method itself. So the bucket provider doesn't actually give us, that's not the bucket itself. So we need to say something like _bucket equals bucket provider, and then we'll say .get bucket and the name of your bucket.
Oh, okay. How did I think it was CarMessenger.
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure. Let me check. Yeah, it was CarMessenger bucket. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we are kind of hard coding that here, which isn't a great idea, but there are some ways we can get around that. Not super important right now. We can actually give it a strong type, define some names, things like that. So you don't need to store the bucket provider. You just need to store the bucket.
Okay. Oh.
So, yeah.
So what does that give me? Is that...
So that's going to give you an iBucket.
iBucket.
Yep.
Okay.
So there we go.
Oh, it doesn't like it. That's probably because I'm missing namespace.
Yeah. Are you is that just Visual Studio or using ReSharper to find those?
I think this is just Visual Studio, because whenever I tried to use ReSharper in the past, it just slowed down Visual Studio to a point when it was impossible to work with it. So I don't use it anymore. And this is actually my personal computer, so I don't have a personal license for ReSharper. So yeah, okay. And I'm happy with Visual Studio, just Visual Studio. Yeah.
I've gotten so used to ReSharper. Sometimes I don't know what's ReSharper and what's Visual Studio.
Well, Visual Studio got much better over the years, so now it just has everything I need. But yeah, I'm like a hobby developer, so.
Okay, so why don't we start with the store method, the actual HTTP post that we're putting data into the database, so we can actually then go and test our query out. All right, so the way you store things in Couchbase is you use the bucket object. So we're going to say _bucket.
Okay.
And then we're just going to call a method on that. We're going to say insert. Let's go insert. Okay. And then what you do, there's lots of overloads here, but you basically need to give it a key and then the actual value, the document we're going to put in there. So the first argument can be a key. Let's just call that, you could use a GUID, for instance. That's probably the simplest way to do it. The GUID.new GUID. And then that's going to be 2-string over there, I think.
You're right.
And then the second one would be message. It's just a message object.
Okay.
That's it.
So, but this message has to be serializable, right?
Yes, that's true. It has to be serializable. It uses, right now, I think this is using Newtonsoft to do the serialization. Right. Which, by the way, it reminds me, there's also an asynchronous way you can do this. So you can say insert async if you want to go the asynchronous route.
Yeah, why not?
You can do that as well. Well, then now you got to make your method asynchronous, which is totally fine. Make that async. It has to be, I think, task of iAction.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Okay. And so that's it. So there's no validation going on here, right? It's just throwing that message directly into the database, which could be a little dangerous, right? But the validation is a question you're going to have to address at some point.
Yeah, I mean, this is fine for now, because this is still going to be just the internal data layer. And then when the data are coming from Twilio, I don't think there's going to be much validation necessary, as I expect Twilio to do that for me, at least to some extent. And from the website, I already have here validated reCAPTCHA. So But of course, some validation, like if the message is there, if the license plate is valid and so on, that will have to of course happen. But I expect that to happen on the model when you actually call the service to happen automatically, and that would just return bad request if it doesn't work.
Sure.
Yeah.
So with this insert method, it'll actually return a result object, which could have error messages or exceptions, other information you may want to use that and interrogate that. Yes, you could say, for instance, if result.success is false, if not result.success, then you could return a bad request, for instance, or whatever you wanted to return there.
So iAction result. So what do I return here? Can I return HTTP status code as an iAction result?
Yes, I think there's a few of those available. I think bad request maybe is a sort of a helper. So it's not an object. It's just a method of the base of the controller. So bad request.
Object result, isn't it?
I think just bad request.
Oh, just like that?
It's just a method. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
And then otherwise you could say return OK.
Nice.
Yep.
Cool.
That.
Okay.
And so maybe we want to try this out first. So you're going to need in 26, you're going to need to throw a new non-implemented exception, or return null, whatever you want to do.
This is easier.
I usually do the non-implemented exception, right?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, but all right.
Okay, so now you can open up your favorite tool of choice, whether it's curl or Postman or whatever.
Yeah. I'm just trying to run this first and open Postman. Okay, now this should fail because weather forecast is not there anymore.
Right, should be a 404 probably.
Should be message. Oh, but let's wait for it.
The message isn't going to work either because you're doing a get from a browser. Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Seems to be taking a while to load up the site.
And also Postman, I think that's not related to, see that?
Oh my.
That'll be the problem.
I know we talked about this before we started, are you using Streamlabs OBS right now?
No, it's not Streamlabs. That's the worst part.
We got a lot going on right now. We've got a web server, we got Skype, OBS. There's a lot happening.
Exactly, yeah. So see, even Postman is struggling.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid there is nothing I can kill. Oh, there is. I still have Netlify functions running. And I still have GridSum running. Okay.
All right.
All right.
There you go. Looks like the website returned a 404 right up there.
Can be found, yeah.
Yep. Okay. Good. So with Postman,
this also doesn't work. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're looking at message controller, right?
Right. It is message.
Message. Yeah.
And we're doing the store, right? So
we're in post request.
Post. Yeah. Well, that see, I usually put routes explicitly on my actions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to know to go to the store method? Do you know that?
Yeah. So what do we do here? Template. So /store.
Right. So up on line 14, you've got that controller up there at the top. So I never.
This one.
Can keep track of how it puts those routes together, but.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So /message. Like this.
So I don't. Thing is, I don't know. Is that going to be /message/store, or is it going to overwrite that? I can never keep that straight. So I always put the routes. I keep the routes off the controller class.
Ah, so you mean so where do you put them?
I just put them right on the action, right? So right there on line.
Oh, here.
After line 29, I'd say route, and I'd take off the one on line 14.
Okay, so you would go with route message /store.
Sure.
and remove this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so so it's clear to me, right? I don't have
Right.
to remember all those rules.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let me run this again.
Oh, let's see. Ryan suggests a REST client extension of VS Code. I've not heard of that one before. That's interesting. I'll check that out.
The REST client extension of VS Code. Yeah.
VS Code, right. So not Visual Studio, but VS Code.
Right.
Good suggestion. I'm going to check that one out.
Oh, but there is an error here.
All right.
Does not have an attribute route action.
Oh, yeah. We took that off. So we need one on the get as well.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There we go. So the message get.
Yep. Yeah, he's saying instead of Postman, you could use the VS Code REST client, which I don't think I've used, so I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I didn't know about this. So how is that better than Postman? What's the difference?
I don't know.
Because
if you spend all your time in Visual Studio Code, you don't have to switch between applications. So.
Well, I remember Postman when it was just a Chrome extension. That was great. I was really really amazed when I discovered that. So yeah.
All right. So there we go. Oh yeah, this is the link to the REST client, HTTP Junkie. Hey Eric,
cool.
How's it going? A colleague of mine, HTTP Junkie.
Nice. like the nickname. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, interesting.
Any screenshots here? Oh, there's a screenshot. I love images. Cool.
Oh, interesting. You can just put the request right there and pretty cool.
That's actually nice. You know what I hate about Postman is that whenever you go in here and you just want to quickly try out something, I always do the mistake of clicking at new. Then you do a request, and then it keeps asking you stuff,
Yeah.
While I just want to test it, yeah. So.
You start a new tab is what I usually do.
Yeah, I know.
But then I end up with a bunch of tabs. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so this was not found, which is what I expected. So now we go for message/store. Is that case sensitive? Shouldn't be, right? When it's HTTP, when it's URL.
It might be. I'm not sure.
Oh, we'll see.
Yeah. All right. So then in the body, we're going to put in the object you want to post, right? So we've got
here we go.
Select body and then raw. Yep. So you can put JSON in here. So a JSON version of the message that we're going to be posting.
I have it? There we go.
Yeah, JSON, right. So that included. Can't remember all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, me neither. Okay, so we're looking at license plate. So that would be a random license plate.
Sure.
I thought about putting mine there, but and let's do Czech Republic. I would say that it's CZ. Content.
I like your bus.
Okay. And sender ID, that would be some kind of random GUID. Like that. Okay. So we just send this?
That should work, I think. If we've done the routing correctly and everything.
Okay, status 200 okay.
200 okay. All right, so now what you can do is go back over to Couchbase in the browser.
Okay.
And if you do retrieve documents up there, that button on the top right.
Wow, nice.
There's your bucket. So if you hit the pencil icon there on the left, you'll get to get a nice review of it in detail. But
cool.
There's your document. Notice the key there is a GUID, completely
right, completely
GUID.
new one.
You can make that key whatever you want to. It doesn't have to be a GUID. It can be something more meaningful or semantic. For this use case, I don't see right now what you'd want to put there, but you could potentially put things like the license plate in there.
I think this is fine because potentially there could be millions of images of messages. So I think GUID is fine because we don't have anything that would identify a message, right?
Right. And the use case you showed me, we don't need to pick an individual message. You want to select multiple messages based on a license plate and country code, right?
Oh, maybe what we need to do is put a timestamp here.
That might be a useful thing to put in as well.
Yeah.
If you want to order them, yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, because in the future potentially, I would want to get like the last 20 messages, and if someone just scrolls down, I would just lazy load the rest. But is there something in Couchbase that would allow me to put a timestamp there, or is this just a document?
It's just JSON. There's nothing that Couchbase is enforcing.
Okay.
You could go and edit that JSON directly and add in the timestamp if you want to. If you want to do that right now, you can just delete the document and we can add it to the C# object.
That's better.
But we could also have two documents, one with timestamp and one without.
Right.
And then there's lots of different strategies for dealing with that as well. Because that's probably one of the fundamental things about document databases. If you come from a relational background, it might make you a little uncomfortable at first that you have two pieces of data with slightly different members in them.
Right.
But certainly at this stage, when you're in a hackathon, like that flexibility, that agility is a bonus, and that's why you see a lot of NoSQL used in hackathons.
Okay, so if in the future or in the get method, I actually want to get the messages by license plate, so I need to do some kind of filtering. How do I help the database to, or how does that even work when I want to filter for something?
Right. So basically, what you want to do is run a SQL query on it, right? So why don't we go ahead and add some more data in there, just so we can get a live example.
So let me just quickly fix the timestamp stuff.
Okay.
Just gonna put here dates time. Created.
Timestamp or created. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. And then in your and then when you need to when you post your post request, right? You need to add another field in there.
Created. And let's just go for or what I can do actually, I could just generate the timestamp here. I don't have to fill it there.
You could, yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Just in your message object, you could have it always be datetime.now. I mean, yeah, or you could do that, right?
Or UTC now.
Or UTC now, yep.
Yeah.
That would work too.
Okay, so in that case, I can just omit it here.
Got a request in the channel. Can I boost my audio a tad? I don't have control over that.
Can you boost your audio? Okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that. Okay, let us know if this is okay.
Okay. And while you're working on that, another question? What's the best practice to handle documents? I don't like the term best practice, but I'll allow it this time. To handle documents with different structures when deserializing. Yeah. So the question for the answer to that one basically is there's not really a best practice. There's different strategies to do it. One of the things you can do is you can put a version number in your documents to say this is a document with the fields of version 1, and you can have another one version 2 later. And then you can put some logic in place to say if it's version 1, go here. If it's version 2, go here. Another option is you can just sort of just assume that I have the latest model in my C# class, and that means some fields may be missing when I'm doing my deserialization. And then if you have version number in place, then you'll know that, okay, I wouldn't expect those fields to be there because it's an older version, right? And so you can then in your program, so this is kind of one of the shifts you have to do. You have to shift some of this logic into your application. You can say, we're going to handle this document in a different way, or we're going to catch it up to the new version, or we're going to branch off on the version number and treat data in a different way. So, I mean, it's a harder, it's an exercise you got to go through when you're thinking about that, right? It's very similar to versioning a REST API, right? You have to think about how you're going to deal with that. Yeah, then there's an example query in the chat there. This is another one of my colleagues. There's an idea of missing in Couchbase.
Oh,
so
nice.
If a field's not there, it's just missing. So you can actually test for that.
Cool. Yeah. Regarding the other question, I tried to adjust your audio a bit, but I also turned down my audio a bit, so that if that should help if those viewers can control their own volume.
Yeah. Sounds like it was better. So
yeah, perfect. All right. So I'm just perfect. Thanks for the report. that it's all better now. So now this is running.
Okay, so let's just put a couple different pieces of data in there so we can start querying it and get some examples going.
Okay, let's see if this is still going to work. It takes a while.
Yeah, what is
it's okay.
Taking so long there? Okay. When we are running probably 100% CPU at one point. So.
Yeah.
So you're putting in a different piece of data now.
Hate your boss.
I hate your boss. Oh, how rude.
Okay. Yeah, I'm running out of ideas. It's always like that, you know, with test content.
About your boss.
Okay, now let's do another one for the same license plate.
Okay. Very nice. I like your optimism about of the system. People leaving compliments for other drivers.
I know. Okay, so we should have four of the documents here. Okay, that's what we have here. All right.
Okay. All right. Now, remember early on when we installed Couchbase the first time, we had to check the query and index services. You don't have to have those to use Couchbase, but those are my favorite things about Couchbase is the querying and indexing. So let's go to the query tab here. This is a query workbench, and this is where you can type in a SQL query at the top, and you get results at the bottom when you execute it.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that's a little different compared to relational is that you can't do a full scan of the data by default. That's kind of a dangerous thing. You don't want to do that in production, so that's kind of off by default. So any sort of query you run right now will, and you can go ahead and try it, will not succeed because there's no index for that, right? So indexing is a huge topic that we can't really cover in the next 30 minutes, but I can give you some some cheats here to make this easier for us. And we're working on some tutorials right now that cover this exact topic, so I just happen to have them handy.
But I mean, I wouldn't even use normal SQL without indexes.
Well, you can. That's the thing, right? You can write a SQL query that scans the entire table, right? You shouldn't, but people do it.
I mean, you can, but this is exactly the thing that's gonna come back after half a year, you know, to bite you in the ass.
Yes, absolutely. So what we can do is I want to create two different indexes here. So let's go back to the query workbench. And we create these the same way we do in SQL, right? Okay. So I can copy and paste these if you just want to copy from our Skype chat.
So the way how I create indexes in normal SQL is by Management Studio. So I don't think we're gonna do it the same way.
Right. So there's some other ways we can automate the index creation, but yeah, the syntax is create, and then we're going to do a primary index. So it's going to create primary index.
Okay.
It's going to be your syntax here, and we'll create primary index on. And in my chat message I called it default, but your bucket name was CarMessenger bucket. So create CarMessenger bucket. Now what we're doing here is called a primary index. This is dangerous to do in production because this basically enables a full bucket scan. Right?
Okay.
It's fine for development, totally fine. But just for the record, it's something I wouldn't put in production unless you're sure you absolutely need it. Okay, the next one.
I executed, yeah.
Yes, I think it finished already, right?
No, I did explain.
Oh, you didn't explain. Yeah. Okay. Okay, and it was
500.
Messenger bucket.
Fails to create index. There is no available index service that can process this request.
Okay, well that's interesting. Let's try it again. We might be hitting some CPU problems right now.
Yeah, could
98%
be.
CPU.
Could be. Look at that. OBS Studio 44%. Oh my god.
Yeah, OBS is really hogging the CPU. Okay, interesting. Can you go over the indexes tab? Let's just see if it's okay. So it's not actually creating it.
syntax.
Yeah,
So
syntax I think is fine.
HTTP Junkie asks syntax. Can we explain real quick what the upfront cost of the SQL versus lookup by ID?
Sure. Yeah. So with a SQL query, you're going to have to use the query service and index service. So there's some overhead involved here. Right? To actually parse the query, find the appropriate index, go to the index, get the values, and then possibly do a data lookup. With the you can also, like we did earlier when we did the insert statement, we avoided the index service, we avoided the query service, we went right to the data service. We can do the same thing to get individual documents by their key. And so that's going to be super, super fast compared to this by orders of magnitude, because we know the key to the document already. We can go directly and get it. So we can't always get what we want by just doing a key lookup. So we need SQL at some point. So at some point, the overhead is worth it. Wow, this is really just not cooperating.
Yeah. Is there some kind of a service that needs to be running or something?
Yeah, I mean
check?
the query service, right, which we checked at the beginning when we installed this.
Right.
So it should be running. It's possible that because of that CPU, that service may have crashed or something.
Let me check.
We could try restarting Couchbase. Yeah, right there, and that services.
Couchbase service. Couchbase server service.
Right. So if you restart that, you can. Yeah, it's running.
Yeah, I'll restart it.
Yeah, maybe we can go to the servers tab and verify the services there. But you can also restart the service. That might also solve the issue for now.
Just
how much? If you don't want, yeah, just restarting the service. If you don't mind me asking, what are the specs on this machine you're using?
Not very good, to be honest. I have to upgrade it, but yeah, it's definitely not what you would want to use on a daily basis. Man.
OPS being such a hog here, that could be it could have a negative effect.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, so let's try it again here and see if it's going to work this time.
No, it still fails.
Yeah, still failing. So go over to the servers tab over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks like it's running.
Wow, cool overview.
Yeah, all kinds of stats and stuff here.
Yeah, but it still doesn't work.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying. We could try a different index. I pasted another one. I don't know if that makes a difference if the index service isn't cooperating.
Oh, let me see.
We can try another one.
I'll try to
put
get
it
it
in
from
your Skype chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to open that.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Right, so this is a different kind of index called an adaptive index, and this one is going to give you similar functionality to the primary index, but it's going to be generally more performant. It's going to be a more efficient index. It does take up some more disk space and more memory, but it's probably a better index than that, and we're still having the same index error there. So
yeah, still 500.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I can.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I'll probably have to shut down the OBS, but yeah, that's not an option right now, unfortunately.
Of course not, because we're streaming, right?
Yeah.
But so once you had those indexes created, the next step would just be to write some SQL. So if we can go back to your notepad there, we can sort of write the SQL in advance of this. So like your get messages was your use case, right?
Yeah,
so
that's this part, yeah.
Right, so we want to look it up by license plate and country code, right? So yeah, you could do a select star. The same kind of caveats apply with select star here as they do in relational world, right?
Okay.
So select star from the bucket name, and you want to say put a where in there, right? So we're going to say where.
Okay.
And then the two fields, so license plate equals whatever string, and country code equals whatever string. I think if you go back to Couchbase, you'll find that the casing is actually camel cased of those fields. That's the default behavior there. You can override that if you want to, but that's the default behavior of the Newtonsoft.
Okay, license plate and
Yep.
country code. So license plate, let's say that that will actually be variable. So as
Right,
well as this
right.
one. But okay, let's try one. 1AB 9875 with a space. I should remove the space. But I'll do that later.
One other thing I like to do, if you go back to the notepad there with that SQL query, this is just a personal preference, but I like to alias everything. So I would say something like from CarMessenger bucket, and I'd put like a C next to that, just to
like
alias
that.
that C. And then I'd say select C.star, C.license plate, etc. That's going to become especially handy when you if you start to get into joins, for instance, right? It's again, same thing applies in relational. So I would always like to do that.
Right. Okay, so now I can run this.
Well, that's not going to work because the indexes aren't there. But yes, you'd run that. That would return
no index available.
Anything that has those license plate and country codes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is. That is a real shame. Because that's my favorite thing about Couchbase is SQL queries. Because my background is in relational, in SQL Server and MySQL and whatnot, and I was always curious about NoSQL, but I was always worried about having to learn a whole new query language, a whole new way to interact with data. And Couchbase had SQL, so I was like, oh, okay, this sounds cool.
Okay, so if you
HTTP, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if you're preparing the cloud-based version of Couchbase, is there going to be community version?
So this is a question probably for the product team, and I don't have an exact window into their roadmap, but it's my understanding, and it's my hope anyway, that there will be a free tier of that for you to use, at very least a trial tier, but hopefully a free tier. I'm not making any promises here, just for anybody in my company who's watching.
Sure.
This is just my hope is, and my expectations.
that would solve the issue now, because I could just create the index there and then say, you have to upgrade the hardware of your servers. And now I have to buy a new computer.
Right.
All right, but how do I then finish the get method here?
Okay. Yes. So in this case, we have the SQL query written, and we want to put that into our code. So there's multiple ways you can do this. There's actually a link provider for Couchbase if you want to use link, if you like link. That would be a separate package we have to install. But for right now, we could just run it through the normal Couchbase SDK. So we could start by putting a string of that SQL into here. So just like create a SQL string. Yeah. And just paste that code into here. A good way to start. Okay. Now, of course, you don't want to do string concatenation here. You want to actually do some parameterization, right? So wherever it has that literal string for license plate, like 1AB9875, let's replace that with a token. And so the way you do tokens in Couchbase is use a $.
Okay.
And take off the quotes as well. You don't need those quotes there.
Okay, it's just like that.
Yep. And then same thing for country code. You probably want to replace that as well with $. Country code. Yep. Okay. And so that's the raw string. So now we're going to create an actual query request object in Couchbase.
Okay.
So the way I usually do this is I'll call the string something like SQL, like line 26. I'd say SQL is the string, right?
Oh, like that. Okay.
Or N1QL, which is actually the name of Couchbase's language. And then I'd say
is it an NQL?
Yeah, N1QL, nickel.
Oh, like that.
N1QL.
Yeah. Got it.
And then I'd define a query object. So say var query equals, and then I'd say query request. So this is part of the Couchbase SDK, capital Q, query request, dot, create. And then pass in the N1QL there.
Cool.
Okay. And then you have a query object, so you can add parameters to it. So we say query dot add named parameter. I guess that would work. I don't see why not. I usually do it on separate lines, but that's fine. But then the name parameter, so the name of it would be $license plate, for instance.
So this is a key value compare. Oh, string name object value. Okay.
There we go.
So we do
Yep.
this like this.
Mm-hmm.
And the
And
value
then
will be
license plate would be the value.
plate.
Yep.
And that would be
Country code. Yep. You got it.
Cool.
Okay. And then one more thing, which again probably take me a little bit more time to explain this, but just for the sake of it, because I don't want this to come up as an issue later.
Yeah.
Another setting in query, I'd say query dot, and then scan consistency. Okay, and then a parameter to that. There's multiple scan consistency options, and so we're going to go with request plus. That's kind of the safest one. There's a little bit of performance penalty for that, but it's the safest one in terms of getting the most up-to-date, accurate data.
So what does this do?
Right. So yeah. So the way it works in indexing in Couchbase is that it's asynchronous. All right. So when you add new data, that gets put into a queue to be indexed. Okay. And so then when you execute a query, if that data has not been indexed yet, if you don't have request plus set, it's going to possibly give you results that are out of date because they've not been, the index hasn't been updated yet. Okay. What request plus says, wait until all the index operations that are pending are complete, and then run the query.
Okay.
So you may have to wait a little longer. In your case, if it's just one application running locally, you're not going to notice a difference, right?
Right.
And then there's other options here, as you see in a drop down here. So AT plus is another option. Requires a little more work, but it can give you the accuracy of request plus with better performance. All right. And the other one is not bounded. That is the default behavior. So that just basically says, give me whatever's in your index right now. Don't wait for anything. That's the fastest behavior. That's why it's the default. But this is something that was a gotcha for me early on with Couchbase. Was I was inserting data and then immediately querying it back out, and it wasn't being returned. And I said, well, why not? Because the index was still being updated.
Right. Okay. So
that's why I'm recommending request plus right now.
So I thought that the consistency was of the query, but it's actually consistency of the bucket.
Of the index.
Of the index. Okay.
Itself, right. Yeah. So the data is immediately stored in the bucket. That's always consistent.
Right.
But the index is updated asynchronously.
Okay.
Okay. So now I'm going to execute the query. So we're going to say bucket dot underscore bucket dot query. Right, it was underscore bucket, I think, right?
I was just looking at the chat. Someone is asking how much memory on this system. I don't think that the memory is the issue. It's got 16 gigs. Verify services running under the servers tab.
Yeah, we did that already.
Yeah, I think we did that already, but now I'm at 80% again. Let's try it again. Nope.
Yep.
Yeah, this is running. So yeah. All right, let's go back here. So underscore bucket.
Yep. Dot query.
Query. And the search query goes here, yeah?
Oh, so we're not doing a search query.
Oh, okay.
We're doing a nickel query. So you have to specify a type here. So a type of message.
Oh, this is what I'm getting back, yeah?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And then you'll pass the query in here as the parameter.
Okay.
Okay. And now again, just like with the insert from before, this will return a result, which could include exceptions, error messages, success, things like that. Right.
So this is gonna be result.
Yep. And then, yeah, you could just check for success. Yep. Same as before.
So then we return bad request. Otherwise, what do we do then?
So you could return OK.
No, actually, I need the data here.
Right. We're gonna return that inside the OK. Oh,
okay.
Yes. This should still work, and then say result dot rows.
So this is a list. Okay.
Wait, is that right?
Cannot
Results
necessarily
of purpose.
convert OK object result to.
Oh, okay. So this is because yeah, we're not asynchronous, I think. So let's go up there and make that asynchronous. I think. No, just
I
because
don't
it's not
think.
an action result. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
But anyway, I can make
We
this
could make
action
it, yeah.
result. How do I actually make action result return data?
I think it will. I don't know if you need to specify a type there actually, because it's just going to
Yeah,
go to HTTP anyway,
but
right?
then it's easy to make a mistake.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. Is there a
So what if I just return enumerable message?
right? Because then I think
And this
the
one,
problem there is
which one is async here? I
yeah,
think this one
query
should be
async.
async, right?
Yeah, yep. So it's called query async instead.
Right.
You need to put it away out there. Um, it's a good question on the action result. Because the problem there is it's not an action result, so bad request and OK won't work.
So what if I return just result rows in here?
Oh, you know what? It's instead of did you put I action result or
Yeah.
was it actional? Just put plain action result instead of I action result. That might do the trick. So task of action results of type I enumerable message.
Okay.
I think that might do the trick.
Yeah.
Yep, there we go. Okay.
So object, but there's still object value.
Right, because OK allows you to return whatever you want to, right?
Oh yeah, okay. So I wonder if I put here something like hello, if this is gonna complain. No, it's not complaining.
Good question.
It's not
I see what you're
complaining.
getting at.
Okay.
Yeah, right. And so that's an ASP.NET
Yeah.
Core thing, right? There may be other ways to go about that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But yeah, that's
You
something.
don't have to
that's
use
something
action
different.
result, I don't think, but
Yeah.
typically. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it's not going to work because there's no index yet. But
Yeah.
that's how you do it.
Let's try it one more time. No, still doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it says that there is no available index service. Isn't that something I need to enable somewhere?
Well, like I said, when you installed this cluster, you enabled it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not an extra step normally involved with
So
doing that.
the only thing I disabled was the search service, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I might try to yeah, it's here, index. So I might try to restart the computer and see if that helps.
Yeah, it might be worth a try. So some suggestions from the chat was using Docker. We talked about that early on. You don't have Docker installed on this machine. I don't know if that would solve the issue or not, because the Docker might be struggling with CPU. Another suggestion was MOI, which is memory optimized indexes. We also covered that early on in the stream. That's an enterprise only feature, and we're using the community version of Couchbase.
Well, the biggest lesson learned here is that I should get a new computer. That's fine. I'll try to bring it up with my company. Let's see what they think.
Well, certainly for streaming, or if OBS is being such a hog, I don't normally have that sort of experience. I use Streamlabs, but you mentioned early on that Streamlabs was even worse.
The problem is that I use the same machine for everything. So maybe I should. Ryan actually not invited, but Ryan told me that I should get an extra computer just for streaming because he's got a great setup in his home. So I might get inspired by him. And the truth is I'm using my personal machine and the work laptop is just sitting here, on the desk. So I might as well try that. But yeah.
I don't quite have a 2 PC setup. I have a desktop machine that I built that's pretty beefy. And so I hardly ever struggle with it, right? I built this machine to run like high performance like VR games, so it has no problem doing like 10 things at once, streaming and Couchbase and Visual Studio and Docker and all those things. So, but I can see we're kind of taxing it with just the streaming as it is, and you got Skype running as well. So That can't be helping.
Let me check here. Actually, how do I? There is somewhere. How do I find the configuration computer? This PC. That's what I'm looking for. So this is i5, 3.5 gigs, 16 gigs of RAM. So.
Yeah, I mean, that should be more than enough, but OBS seems to be really just eating a lot of CPU.
Yeah, well, that's life.
So.
Okay, so I'll try to restart it. I'll try to run this again. I hope that this is gonna work. It looks really simple. So I like that.
It is. I mean, honestly, you've never written any Couchbase queries before. You never used Couchbase before today, right?
Yeah,
and you're able to write a query for Couchbase because you know how to write SQL already. And so to me, that's the main thing about Couchbase for me is I know how to write SQL. I can do it here, but you're querying JSON data instead of tables. So there's some extra stuff like the missing we mentioned earlier, other features. So it's really more like SQL++. Is how I look at it. It's SQL plus some more stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that the NoSQL database is a good fit here, because I know that with MS SQL sometimes you hit the performance limits of the relational database. Of course, if you put everything in a single table, then it starts to work up to a certain point. But I've never tried NoSQL database yet, so I think I'll try to explore this a bit more. And in a week you'll see if I actually submitted that project to the hackathon or not. But
right.
They give you I think they give $50 of credit for the Dev2 shop for the merch that they have there. So that's my motivation,
That's cool. $50 of merchandise, of swag. Okay.
Of swag, yeah.
That's cool. So if you enter or if you win?
If you just enter.
If you just
enter, as long as you have, long as the project that you're creating fulfills the criteria they set up, then you're eligible for that. I think the main price is $1,500 or something like that.
Oh wow, okay.
Which is not bad.
What kind of swag is it that you're looking forward to getting from Twilio?
Well, it's from Dev2 actually, not Twilio.
Oh, Dev2. Oh, sorry.
But to be honest, I haven't looked because just the thought of having $50, motivated me. So I haven't seen anything there, to be honest. I still have yet that.
Well, I'm kind of interested. I have a interest in what kind of swag that developers like. Is it because you see the T-shirts at conferences and stuff like that. But what are the other
take a look.
things? Yeah, let's.
That's the good point. Yeah, let's take a look. So it's T-shirts. What can $50 get me?
Yeah.
So that would be a T-shirt and a cap. That's it.
Okay.
Or a mug. Yeah, that looks like NASA logo, by the way.
It does look like a NASA logo.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's nice. I mean, if you take this to a conference, everyone knows that you're an open source guy. Yeah.
Cool.
It's nice stuff. I also have some swag from Gatsby, because whenever you do a pull request, they send you a coupon for something from their shop, which is a nice gesture. I think I have socks from them or something.
Yeah, I like the socks are popular.
Yeah,
I like the socks myself.
Nice.
Yeah. Cool.
So all right. Here, 2PC setup is the way to go. That's what Ryan says.
Yeah, I guess the more PCs, the better.
Yeah, get me a Mac Mini. Why stop at Mini? That's true. Why Mac Mini? Why not just a proper Mac? I do have an iPad Pro. I don't think that would work though for this scenario. But I love that machine. I don't know how Apple does that, but their marketing works on me very well. All right, Matthew. Thank you very much for your guidance today. I think
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'll try to work on this and hopefully open source it. Of course, without these credentials that are super secret.
Yes, good idea.
I'll get back to you if I can get this running. I'll let you know if this is working. I hope it's gonna work because it looks great. I really like the simplistic UI. This is really something that I love about some softwares that sometimes it's really hard to navigate through the UIs, but here it's really clear, it's plain. I really like that.
Good. I'll pass that along. That's really good
Yeah.
feedback. Do you make your videos available on YouTube afterwards?
Yeah, I try
Or
to.
anything like that? Okay.
I try to do that. Sometimes I do. I cut it a bit, but I will definitely post this one there. I think a lot of interesting info here. So thanks for that. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Happy to do it anytime. I'd love to come back on your show in the
Cool.
future.
Cool.
Talk about anything.
I'll let you know. I'll be happy to have you again. Stay safe. Stay home. Yeah. I actually have to walk my dog now, so I'm not gonna stay at home. But yeah, all the health to you and to the viewers as well. And I'll see you all guys next time. Thanks for watching and bye.
Thank you.